Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial. Today's tutorial I'm going to talk about how to create a web application using Maven. So I already have created the web application that I'm going to demonstrate in this tutorial, and that is J105. And if I expand it, you can see that this is the directory structure, and in this directory structure you can see one specific file that is called the pom.xml. So whenever we are going to create a Maven project, the pom.xml file will be created for us. Now if I expand this directory src, and you can see there are two main directories over here, main and test, and I'm going to expand this as well, and you can see there are three more directories: Java, resources, and web apps. In the Java directory we are going to have all our source files, and those are assembled, or those are in the directory structured as packages. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one, is the resources directory, and you can see there are two files, database.properties files and the messages.properties file. And these two files, the purpose of it I'll be talking later on, but remember that in the resources folder we are going to keep all the properties file or some other files that we are going to use for our web application. And then there is the web app directory, and within the web app directory you can see that there is the webinf directory, and then we have few more JSP files that we have put here. So we can actually create some more directories under this, but right now I have just put it under the web app directory. And you know that underneath the web app directory you cannot access anything from outside of the internet. Now let's collapse it. Let's close this, and we are going to look into the Java resources. So if we look into over here, you can see that these are the directories: main, Java, and then resources, and then the test. And then you can see that there is a folder or directory that is libraries one, and we're going to have all the respective libraries that we're going to use for our web application build. In here you can see that the system library is Java Standard Edition 11, so that is Java 11, and then we are going to have a JUnit 4, and you can see like these are the jar files, and then we have the Maven dependencies, and these are the jar files that we are going to use for our application. And how are these coming? These are coming when you put those over here. So whatever you put over here under the dependencies, okay, those jar files will be downloaded by the Maven, and then it will be put into your local directory, and then when you're building it, the web application, these will be bundled along with the libraries. Okay, so let's now create one application. I'm going to create, right click over here and then new, and then if you click on other, and then you can just type, already it is Maven project, but we can just type over here Maven, and then you can see that there is a Maven project. Click on next and let it keep as default, and let's move on to next, and we are going to select this one. You can see that org apache.maven archetypes, and we are going to use the web app and the version 1.0. okay, so there are many things. All of these have different purposes, but for our web application creation we are going to click on this and click on next. So the group ID is com.study8. You can change whatever you want, and the artifact ID is going to be J106. okay, so that is my project name, and this is the package, and then click on finish. So you can see that we are going to have a project created, J106, and immediately you can see that there is an error. Okay, so now we have to update our POM file. Okay, that is the next step. So let's click on here, pom.xml, and you can see that already the group ID is com.study8, artifact ID, which is the project, is J106. We are going to do a packaging of war file because this is a web application and the packaging should be a WAR file. There are alternatives to that, but we are not talking about that right now. And then the version number, and then name, and then URL. Okay, and then you can see the list of dependencies. Okay, and there is a build. Now what I have to do is I have copied the actual POM file, what it should look, and going to paste it over here. Okay, so I actually already copied this one, so I'm going to paste it over here. So you can see now here the same thing, model version 4.0, group ID, same thing, artifact ID is A106, and then version, name, and then the dependencies. If I click on this or enlarge this, you can see that we are going to have one dependency. It means that we are going to have the servlet API for our web application, and then we have the servlet.jsp API. We are going to use JSTL, so that's why we need to include that jar. And then we are going to use the Apache Commons dbcp2, and then we are going to have a MySQL connector to connect to the MySQL database, and we are going to use the JUnit for our test cases, and I have used the 4.12. You can remember that the default was coming as 3.8, but it's always better to update with the latest version. And this is something other for my JUnit testing. Okay, and then you can see like there is the build portion, and within the build portion I have used the plugin management and I have used the plugins. So I talked about the dependencies. So the plugins also are incorporating or are bringing the jar files, but the difference between the dependencies and the plugins is that the main one is that for dependencies we are going to put our jar files in the class path, so whenever we need we can use, or the application can look it up into the class path. But for the plugins, what we need is most of the work in Maven is done using the plugins. Okay, so let's say you are going to compile it. So for the compilation we are going to do what? We are going to use this Java compiler. Okay, so you can see here plugin, and then Maven compiler plugin, and source we are saying this is 11. Okay, so now minimize it, and what we have to do is the next step is click on here J106, right click, and then we have to click on Maven, and then we have to update the project. Okay, and you can see that J106 or 106 is selected, and then click on OK. So it's just updating all the libraries, and now you can see that if you click on Java resources in libraries, you can see all the libraries over here. Okay, Maven dependencies and GRE system library is now 11. All right, so now a few things we have to just look at. Right click over here and then click on properties, and then if you go to Java build path, you can see that under the libraries it is now selected as Java 11. Okay, and then we are going to look into the compiler. Okay, let's compile it, and the compiler, and then you can see that because of the plugins we have selected in the POM file, the plugin has changed to 11. Before that it was defaulted as Java 5. Okay, and then the other thing is project facets, and under the project facets you can see that the dynamic, the Java is 11. Okay, so that's all about like how to create the web application using Maven. So we are now ready to put the source files and the JSP files within this. Now I just want to show you another thing, like in J105. So this is the actual directory structure in your machine, and you can see that under the src we are having main and test, and under the main we are going to have Java resources and web app. Okay, and under the Java we are going to have all the packages. Okay, so that's all for today's tutorial. I hope that this was a good one, and thank you.